Guys, can you hear me?
يا دكتور.
Yes, يا دكتور.
Okay, did you do the readings? I need more engagement this lecture. Yes or no? Okay, did you get the time just to go through the last lecture in order to digest the material or what I just said?
Yes, يا دكتور.
Okay, yeah, cool. So can anyone summarize or give me kind of hints about what we talked about last lecture?
We were talking about the structuralist as we not interested in the individual behavior. We interested in how the environment and the political and economic and social arrangement shape the individual behavior. And how the contradiction and social tensions shape the individual behavior. And then we interested in historical matters that could shape the transformation of the structure. And then we discussed the three series of Karl Marx and Moores and Scoblot. And the Karl Marx see that he interested in and believed that that structure transformation occur by the conflict and the struggles between the social classes and the economic positions that everyone occupy the economic position in the society, and this will lead to the structure transformation. And we studied the three systems اللي هم الفيدرال system and the social system and the capitalist system, and every system have a contradiction that will lead to its collapse. And we studied the Moores, the theory that interested in the agrarian elites and how it shaped the structured transformation. And that's what I remember.
Okay, thanks. In a more organized way, if I ask you, how can I define a structure or what structural explanation means in comparative politics, how are you gonna answer this?
It's a relationship. It's the relationships within broader system of action.
Okay. So I'm interested in like a broader system of action.
We said that if we have three groups, we are interested in the interconnection, the connection between them.
okay, and it's not fixed. It's contingent and it's not permanent, so it can change over time. So we are, as a structuralist, might be interested in how and why structural transformations or structural changes occur, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then we talked about, we approached like three different themes, and we try to apply to, or to show like the application of a structural theory or structural explanation, to these issues or to these themes. The first one, Karl Marx and his notion about historical transformation, like historical system as the structure that would bring about structure change and structural transformation. And he reduced it all to the mode of production or the economic structure. It's the history can be defined as like transformation from a specific mode of production to another, or economic system to another economic system, from feudalism to capitalism, and then from capitalism to socialism. So we tried to understand Marx's theory of historical transformation through like the perspective or through the lens of the economic forces. And we talked about, this substructure and superstructure. And then this is like one application or one theme. The other theme is the social origins of dictatorship and democracy. And we talked about Moore's structural explanation of like different systemic political outcomes, capitalist or capitalist democracies, and with the bourgeois revolution, and then fascism and communism. And he tried to explain this through structural perspective or through structural lens as well, by focusing on the interaction between different, or the conflict between the class structure and the conflict between different classes with the modernization, with the advent of the modernization of the agrarian system. It led to kind of hostility and struggle between landowners and peasants, and it all depended on the bourgeoisie impulse and their the propensity of the agrarian elites or landed upper classes towards this liberal democracy, and to have like to establish cross-class alliances with the bourgeoisie in order to bring about this political transformation.
Doctor,
systemic transformation.
Sorry for interruption.
Yeah, and then the third application is what we talked about, like the social revolution, and we highlighted the Skocpol application to this by focusing on how she offered a different interpretation or different explanation of the state by highlighting its autonomous position in relation to social classes. But social classes is still pivotal in bringing about revolutionary transformation. But the international position of a specific of imperial states and their military or the vulnerability towards military intrusion or military defeat are the crucial factor with bringing about these social revolutions in three countries: France, France and China. Sorry, France, Russia, and China. Okay, someone wanted to say something?
Yes, Doctor. Sorry, I'm really sorry for interruption, but Salwa Wali want to join the session. Salwa Wali.
Okay, I can admit them all, but you can remind me about their names.
Okay.
Doctor, I have a question regarding the previous lecture.
Yeah, who's talking?
Yara.
Yara, yeah.
في جزء كان ما فهمتوش كويس، بس ما عرفتش يعني أأمل حضرتك، يعني أبعت لك ميل لأن هي محتاجة يعني نتكلم أو مش هتنفع through the mail. يعني اللي هي الشارت اللي هو كان فيه اللي هو الشارت اللي كان قبل اللي كان بيشرح عامة الحتة بتاعت اللي هو بتاعت مورز الثيري. انا اصل السلايد نفسها ما فهمتهاش قوي. ايوه بالظبط دي انا مش فاهمه اصلا هي تقسيمتها ازاي، وسمعتها كذا مره بس ما فهمتش يعني if حضرتك عندك وقت أو كده عشان ما ناخدش من وقت المحاضرة.
Yeah, okay.
شكرا يا دكتور. شكرا.
Just like quickly, can anyone summarize Moore's argument? He tried to, okay, when we talk about structural explanation in comparative politics, so we should, especially with the application, so we depart from specific like theoretical assumptions, and we have like specific question we need to answer, or like political and social transformation or phenomenon we need to investigate, and we need to unravel the causal dynamics or the historical sequences that led to different outcomes or different trajectories. So what he tried to do here, he tried to explain like the different trajectories of different trajectories of political systems or political outcomes. Some countries like the US, England, and France managed to establish this democratic capitalism with the help of the bourgeois revolution, and Germany and Japan they actually ended up with fascist revolution and this modernization from above, basically through authoritative, action from the ruling elites or the political class, and then the communist dictatorship in China and Russia. So what he tried, he actually explained this by applying structural explanation or using structural theoretical tools or the structural conceptual frameworks. So the key, they departed from like some sort of crisis in the existing structure, okay? And then you have to look into, in order to explain these transformations and these changes, you have to look into the class dynamics, like the class structure and the struggle between different classes, okay? So what was here was the structural transformation from the modernization of the agricultural system that gave rise to a powerful economic class, which is the bourgeoisie class, with some sort of strong impulse towards establishing democratic and representative institutions in order to preserve their economic interests and property rights. Lujay, you raised your hand? Yeah, go ahead.
Some of our colleagues can join in. There is Karma Seht, Rawan Mustafa, Hana Amr.
I admitted them before. Okay, yeah. I admitted some of them. Yeah, perhaps, yeah, they have some problem with the connection. Okay, anyway.
Sorry for the interruption.
No problem. So actually, what he tried to do here is, these are the first column is the key variables, okay, the cluster he actually tried to deploy or to apply to these cases. So he tried to investigate this kind of a bourgeois impulse, like democratic, impulse, or the strength of the bourgeoisie as a class, and then the mode of commercial agricultural system. It's if it's like labor repressive or market, and then the inclination or the revolutionary potential of peasants, if they have like a class solidarity and they have their specific community organizations, and if they are totally detached from exploitative landowners, they most probably they would have this revolutionary inclination or revolutionary potential. So what he tried to explain or to examine here, if like you might expect, it was not like straightforward. So if the bourgeoisie class is very like strong, so you might expect they might be aggressive, and they push for their revolution in order to establish their democratic capitalist regime or democratic capitalist system. But what happened, he actually emphasized heavily the strategic role of the agricultural or class, or the landowners or the landed elites. If they have like this kind of propensity towards having cross-class alliance with the bourgeoisie class, so they might share like they might have common interest in establishing these democratic or representative institutions like parliament, for example, if they have like this market based agricultural system. So they have already existing institutions that might, or existing rules and laws that would guarantee or safeguard the justice and security of their subordinate classes or peasants. And it depended also upon the propensity or the revolutionary potential of peasants. So if it's kind of the interaction between these variables, this would determine the conditions under which, you know, this cross-class alliances would come into being. And what I said, like, there is kind of a critique, you know, to this explanation, because he didn't offer this independent account of the strength of the bourgeoisie. Because how would here you have like the same outcome, democratic capitalism, when it comes to France and in comparison to Britain and the United States. Both they have like this strong bourgeoisie class or strong bourgeois impulse. But the thing is, they have like different mode of agricultural system, labor repressive and high potential, high revolutionary potential of peasants. So he didn't tell us, you know, the conditions under which, you know, this variable would mitigate or would cancel out the bourgeois impulse. Because if you see the bourgeois impulse as well in the third column, in the case of Germany and Germany and Japan, with the case of the fascism as a political outcome, still the bourgeois impulse is medium or strong, and they have the same labor repressive but low revolutionary potential of peasants. So he didn't tell us, you know, how these variables would interact together in order to bring about different outcomes. So perhaps, you know, still the strategic role or the strategic position is still preserved, you know, to these agrarian structure and the relationship between peasants and landowners, rather than the bourgeoisie impulse. So you got it? The variables I highlighted in yellow.
Yes.
Okay.
هو بيحاول يقول ان ازاي ان احنا نوصل للنظم اللي هي الفاشست او الديمقراtic through the structure classes، يعني ال conflict between them ازاي بيؤدي ل different outcome in a political system.
Systemic transformation like fascism, communism, democracy or
بس هو ما وضحش هم ازاي بيinteract مع بعض عشان يوصل للنتيجة دي. هو بس highlight
he tried to talk about, you know, this cross-class alliance, okay, but still it's not like systematic through the cases. So that's why some critics, you know, offered or highlighted these points, especially Skocpol.
تمام يا دكتور، شكرا جدا.
Okay.
شكرا.
So he tried to escape, you know, this Marxist account by highlighting or pinpointing, you know, the specific, you know, strategic class that would bring about this systemic transformation. But eventually he ended up applying the same, you know, Marxist scholarly perspective. Okay.
Doctor, can I ask a question?
Yeah, Malak.
We can say that one of the critiques is that Moore didn't give us or offer us يعني what's the response of the state to this collation between the peasants or the two, between the two classes.
I mentioned this last lecture as well. Because he tried to escape, you know, this Marxist account that, you know, the state is an instrument or an agent of the wealthy economic class, but he didn't actually explain or offer like detailed account of the relationship between the state and agrarian elites, for example, here.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so let's continue with Skocpol. She actually talked about like three constellations or this kind of cluster of variables as well, by offering or highlighting the autonomous position. The state is no longer like an instrument or an agent of the wealthy class or the dominant economic class. The state has some sort of independent position or autonomous position in relation to different social classes and different social forces. And class struggle is very important, but in the process, in the revolutionary process, how the revolutionary process actually unfolded, and then how popular classes would join in order to bring about this transformation, this like still like systemic transformation by establishing entirely different administrative structure or administrative apparatus and different or building upon or different military capabilities. So she highlighted, you know, the independent position of the state, and still like this kind of revolutionary crisis emerged. It's not like it didn't emanate from any kind of intentional or agency action. And then the historical and international position of states are very important, and the coercive and the administrative organizations of the state are very, in order to speak of social revolutions, these like administrative and coercive organizations have to be collapsed entirely in order to allow for new elites that they were marginal before to establish new military capabilities and administrative apparatuses. So again, the thing here, they try to unravel, you know, this kind of causal mechanisms, or in order to understand the political dynamics of like different political systems or different revolutionary outcomes. So the main purpose here, as we mentioned in week 2, is to generalize, to offer some general theoretical claims if you are like behavioralist or post-behavioralist. So when we, like as Skocpol mentioned, based on her account of like for the causes of social revolution, the historical causes of social revolutions in these countries, can we speak of a general theory of social revolutions? She answered like explicitly that the answer is unequivocally no. So you cannot reach, or you cannot speak of this kind of general theory of social revolutions and you apply the same analysis and the same mechanisms to the modern social revolutions. She highlighted that, yeah?
Sorry for interruption, but Asma Abu al-Majd and Rauda Murad and Hagar Isam has been removed. She's asking at the WhatsApp group. But Rauda
has been what?
Removed.
I didn't remove them.
لا هو جاي لها ان هي اتشالت الهوست، حضرتك عملت لها ريموف بقى لها مرتين، مش عارفه بيجي لها كده. خلاص مش مشكله، بس هو اسماء وروضه محتاجين البرميشن بتاع حضرتك.
Okay, they can access again. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So she mentioned something about if you need to investigate modern social revolutions, especially like in the post-colonial period, or especially like pre-colonial states, you need to highlight different mechanisms and different that they have different properties of their social structures that would account for any change or transformation of these social structures. So she highlighted or she emphasized actually the historical and institutional circumstances of these social revolutions, that these like circumstances were very specific to these imperialist states, Russia, China, and France. And the outcome of social revolution was conditioned by these world historical changes in the state structure. So if you need to compare these states to like former colonial countries like Mexico, or even like in the Middle East countries in the Middle East in the post-colonial period, if you need to examine national liberation movements and how actually they revolted against colonial power in Algeria, for example, it's very difficult to apply the same mechanisms, like the degree of autonomy of the state and their international or their position in international structure, and this form of establishing from scratch military capabilities or military establishment and administrative apparatuses as well. So you need to examine, you need to highlight some sort of different mechanism that would account for these post-colonial or national liberation struggle to establish their independent states. And she highlighted something as well, because by definition, these countries are like unlike imperial states, that they had like their independent economic and military capabilities, so they were militarily and economically independent. These countries, even they claim they're anti-imperialist or they endorse this anti-imperialist discourse or anti-imperialist rhetoric, they still in reality or effectively economically and militarily dependent on powerful states. For example, in Cuba, for example, they highlighted, or Fidel de Castro mentioned something about, you know, or actually built the entire revolutionary discourse on anti-USA sentiments, but actually he approached the Soviet Union, so he was in a way or another dependent on the Soviet Union or another great power back then. And she mentioned something as well about in order to speak of like social revolution, what's essential to establish like new regime is to have like entirely different military apparatus and administrative apparatuses as well. So she talked about it's very difficult, or it's less, it's highly it's not likely, it's highly unlikely in modern era, because of the military establishment has coercive advantage in relation to different social forces or social classes. So even if there is kind of class struggle within a particular state, still the military has coercive advantage, and the modern military establishment is by definition or generally professional. So they are organizationally, the establishment is organizationally and socially differentiated. So you cannot speak of the military establishment as a tool or instrument in the hand of the dominant class. So that's why they might have like the military establishment might have their like ethos or corporate ethos or corporate like interest that they need to preserve, but most likely they may stay like neutral in relation to different class struggles. So it's very difficult to imagine or to argue for this kind of Marxist assumption about like the instrumentality of the state apparatuses as it's serving, you know, one particular interest or one particular class interest in relation to other subordinate classes. So you need to highlight some of these historical and political variables in relation to the internal composition or the internal makeup of state apparatuses, especially the military, and the relationship between state or the degree of economic and military dependence of the state on other countries, in order to highlight or in order to investigate modern social revolutions. So that's why she ended up saying like the modern social revolution is less likely by the definition she offered, like a entire reshaping of the state apparatuses, administrative and military apparatuses, and this degree of turning upside down, you know, the balance of power between different social classes or different social forces. And like effectively or investigating the actual historical patterns of social revolutions as well in these countries, France, Russia, and China, you may come up with this like, or you might like end up or conclude that there is kind of a lack of fit between Marx theory about this kind of communist or socialist revolutions of the proletariat or the working class and the establishment of socialist regime, and there is kind of they didn't like his theoretical account didn't go in tandem with the actual historical patterns of social revolutions. First of all, these revolutions happened in agrarian structures, so peasants and the struggle between peasants and landowners were the key or the central variable with bringing about revolutionary crisis in these systems. So it was like, structurally speaking, or when it comes to the economic structure, it was not only like the capitalism that pushed for these entire reshaping of economic structure and political structures in these countries. And when it comes to class interest, it's technically and effectively, it's very hard to imagine that these revolutions actually served the interest of the subordinate classes. And the most prominent example is, it's hard to imagine or to argue that Lenin, for example, served the interest of peasants who talked like or played an important role in the Russian Revolution. So when it comes to the structurally speaking and class interest, it's very hard to, there is kind of unfit between the theoretical account that Marx actually historically gave and the actual revolutionary patterns, or the actual historical patterns of social revolutions. So if it's highly like unlikely or less likely to have these kind of social revolutions, it's less likely to happen in our modern world. So can we still speak of effectiveness of a structural account or a structural explanation in investigating some modern issues or some themes with regard to state-economy relations or state-state relations or state-class relations? So the answer is still yes. It has some sort of relevance to our modern world. So you can still investigate, the relationship between different state organizations or different state institutions or apparatuses in relation to like particular social class, like state labor relations, state business relations. You can still speak of different economic policies and different like development models in relation to the role of the state in the economy, and how some sort of economic conditions would affect the class structure and the state organization as well. For example, the implementation of state-led growth under Nasser, for example. So if you need to investigate structurally how like this state economy or the economic conditions actually affected, the relationship between state and different economic actors. So you can speak of the relationship between state and labor unions, for example, how Nasser established some corporatist arrangements in order to control labor unions, how nationalization policies and state like predation actually affected the relationship between business association and the state in Egypt during or throughout the 60s. So you can still like highlight some important issues can be investigated or explained through a structural school or structural tools or structural concepts in terms of like state class relations and state and economic conditions and the impact of its impact on the state organization or the restructuring of state apparatuses, how actually it gave important role to the military, for example, during that period, and how it relegated some social classes, other social classes to the margin. When it comes to state-to-state, you can still, it's related to IR, but you can still, if you remember when we talked about blurring boundaries between domestic and external or international environment, so you can highlight, like the vulnerability, for example, of Al Khalifa in Bahrain. So that's why they might militarily be dependent on mercenaries or Saudi Arabia military aid or military fund in order to strengthen the military establishment in relation to the majority of Shia there. So you can still apply a structural account in order to investigate some themes and some issues in our modern world, especially despite the fact that social revolutions are highly unlikely in our modern world. You can still apply this kind of structural analysis in order to investigate, this regime endurance or regime breakdown. So you can like more analysis of this systemic transformation is still relevant, despite the fact that you cannot you can apply this kind of class analysis with different formulation, but still you can interpret or you can explain, you know, the systemic different systemic outcomes through like class analysis or class structure and class struggle perspective. Okay.
Okay, doctor.
Okay. So we so I think week 9 we are going to see the application of this like a state like dependency theory. It's how like when the state economically dependent on some sort of external forces or its positionality in this global market would affect their development strategies and the relationship between different classes. Okay, or how it would affect decision-making process and collective action inside the specific countries. Okay, so here you have like the main theoretical assumption of structuralism and how actually they all departed in a way or another from Marxist perspective, and what Marx said, and then how Moore tried to escape, you know, these kind of some of the assumptions or some of the Marxist pillars, and then Skocpol made like escape from some of the basic assumption in order to explain social revolutions, and what kind of critique she offered to Moore and to this structural explanation, in the relevance of a structural explanation to interpret or to explain some modern social and political issues or phenomena. Okay, so the thing is, we do this for, again, like methodological purpose. If you are like behavioralist or positivist or post-positivist, you need to generalize, you need to offer some sort of to unravel or to discover some sort of historical sequences or causality that would account for a particular outcome, social revolution or systemic political change. So here you have like departing from this methodological aspect or methodological purpose. So we have like 3 main logics by deploying or applying this comparative historical analysis to some social phenomenon or macro, as she mentioned, macro social inquiry. So the 3 logics are, first of all, you need to either you depart from general theoretical idea and you need to demonstrate its applicability and how it's analytically useful to interpret or to explain some cases. This is called the parallel demonstration of theory. Or you have like still this general theory, like class struggle matters, like the military, like the military establishment or the independent of the military establishment matters while interpreting or investigating guerrilla warfare or social revolutions. But you need to demonstrate this in particular context, or you need to show how this is not applied. You cannot reach this generalization or this general claims about X and Y or about, you know, the 2 variables by offering like a contrasting context in order to show like how the generalization or how this general statement is not applicable to a particular context. Or a third logic, you need to deploy this macro causal analysis in order to reach generalization or to have like this kind of probable general claim about like the relationship between 2 variables, like social class and revolutions, class alliance, cross-class alliance, and systemic political transformation. So you need to have like some sort of cases to compare between them, and then you can validate or you can validate particular claim, or you can reach out or you can reach a conclusion about invalidity of some theoretical claims. So you have like different purposes, and it depends on your main target or your main purpose. You can have your own research design. So if you need like just to have this parallel demonstration of theory, so again you have like general idea, or you have prior general statement, and you apply this statement to theoretical statement to the cases. So the main target or the main purpose here is to juxtapose different cases in order to convince the reader about, like by presenting and clarifying the application of the theory to some historical cases, you convince the reader that the theory is still relevant, and the theory can help you. You can spell out, this causal dynamics that would account for particular outcomes, and you have to cover like different possibilities and different subtypes in order to show how fruitful the theoretical claim or the general explanatory claim is. So you can understand by through like a particular example. Wickham Crowley tried to investigate why guerrilla warfare during the 60s in Latin America led to different outcomes. So it led to successful revolution in Cuba and in Nicaragua, Sandinista and Castro M26, in two contexts. So the guerrilla warfare brought about this structural transformation and revolutionary changes there, politically and socially, while in El Salvador and Guatemala, the same like guerrilla warfare led to civil war. So he tried to cover like several cases in order to show the plausibility or the analytical usefulness of his theory. So the general theory was, or the general idea he departed from, was if you like agrarian structure matter, like these structures matter because of the dislocation and the exploitative economic relation between landowners and peasants. But the most important thing is the military strength of the guerrilla groups, the insurgency groups, the might have, or actually they must have, this is the general idea. If they have like coherent, military forces or military strength that would develop itself into conventional military, this would lead to establishment of dual legitimacy. They would undermine, the legitimate position of the ruling elites or the incumbents, and they would have some sort of legitimate claim to rule. And if they have like this military capabilities or military capacities, they would create this dual legitimacy, and eventually, or like as a parallel process, they would lead to a shift in the mass loyalty, that they would attract or would appeal to different masses in order to have their in order to have claim, to rule, or to have legitimacy to rule their societies. So that happened in Cuba and Nicaragua, but it didn't happen in El Salvador and Guatemala, despite the fact that they had the same agrarian structure and peasants were recruited into like guerrilla military groups, but they failed, to maintain or their coherence, and because of their kind of ideological disputes or ideological competition between different factions of the insurgency groups, they failed to establish like coherent military force in order to trigger or to bring about this shift in mass loyalty. And that's why this led to different outcome. It actually pushed, Guatemala and Salvador to a different political track or a different political path, which was like the prolonged civil wars there. So he had like general idea about, this military structure and dual legitimacy and shifting mass loyalty in order to claim, in order to have legitimacy to rule. So departing from this general idea or general statement, he tried to apply this to different cases or different historical cases in Latin America. So he covered, different possibilities with different outcomes, like Cuba, Nicaragua, El Salvador, and Guatemala, in order to highlight or to pinpoint the role of the military strength and the shift of the mass reality in bringing about revolutionary transformation or leading to the civil war. So here, he actually highlighted some sort of differences between cases, but in order to serve the main purpose of reaching or highlighting the general statement or the generality of the process. So these kind of differences are related to particular context, which was the context was here El Salvador and Guatemala, but the general statement or the general claim is it holds true and it's applicable to these cases. So he highlighted, he covered different other possibilities in order to say that these are kind of context particularities rather than refutation of this general statement, in order to show in order to demonstrate or to convince the reader that this general idea, this general statement is applicable to different cases, and the absence of these factors or these variables didn't lead to the expected outcome, which is the revolutionary transformation or the successful guerrilla group there. Okay?
Okay, doctor.
So the second logic here is it's a little bit quite the opposite. So you contrast different context in order to show how you are skeptical about reaching any valid general explanation or general statement about any social and political phenomenon. So you highlight unique features between cases. So instead of you can have like broad coverage, but the most important thing here is to pinpoint, to highlight the clear-cut differences between cases. So what's the most important? So you need to highlight what's the unique feature of this. So you depart from still like you have like base benchmark or some sort of ideal type or broad theme or ideal type concept, like about like revolution, what revolution is, and you have like this kind of pre-given themes, and you contrast cases against this base benchmark or this ideal type concept of theory. But here your cases is reducible to like a cohesive whole or entire whole. So you are interested in religion, you are interested in civilization, you are interested in like this kind of social structure. It's not like you cannot break it down into particular classes. You are interested in the case as a whole. It's not like you cannot break it down into some sort of elements. And you show the limitation and the drawbacks of any generalized theories. For example, if you need to compare like the impact of modernization on culture or different interpretation of Islamic cultures, for example. So you have like two different contexts, like from the Arab region, you can have like Morocco or because they kept, their some sort of customs and traditions despite the fact of the modernization, and Indonesia as well. So how like religion as a whole, in the application of religion or the religious culture as a whole might be different in different contexts regarding with this kind of framework of economic and social modernization. What kind of economic and social modernization would actually change or would lead to different cultural explanation or different Islamic practices in different two contexts? Or again, with this concept about like revolution, for example. So you need to instead of you cast it out, you need to show that there is no general theory about social revolution. So by comparing Cuba to El Salvador, for example, so the main purpose here is not to show that there is a general idea or a general statement about military capabilities or military strength or the cohesiveness of the military capabilities of insurgency groups, but you need to highlight some sort of ideological divisions between different guerrilla groups or different insurgency groups, and how, for example, this affected the recruitment process or the appeal to the wide masses in two contexts. So here you need to highlight that what's unique about El Salvador in relation to by contrasting it to the case of Cuba, for example. So you might come up with this unique feature about this fierce ideological competition between different factions inside the guerrilla armies or the guerrilla groups. So you need to highlight this in order to show how you are skeptical about any general claim about social revolutions. With the macro causal analysis, so this is like your typical positivistic or post-positivistic comparativist. So you need to test the validity of the existing hypotheses. So you need the main target by making this macro historical analysis or macro historical comparison. You need to reach out or you need to come up with this causal generalization and causal statement. So what you do here, as Cockbull actually did, she had like 3 cases. All the cases had the same outcome, which was social revolution. So what the research design, what kind of research design she adopted here? She had like 3 cases with the same outcome. This is week 2. So if you compare between different cases and you have the same outcome variable, so what's the research design is? What this research design is? Most different or most similar?
Most different design.
Yeah, why?
Because they have different characteristics, but they share the same outcome.
The same outcome, okay. So she had like this most different system design, but in order to have like this kind of comparison, she had to control for different variables. If you remember, do you remember the table? If you have like too many variables, you need to like these aspects that they actually share together. So she controlled for these variables, and she actually offered some sort of negative check as well. So what she did, she compared these cases with other cases that they didn't have like successful social revolution, like Prussia, Japan, and England. And she did as well like within case comparison. So within these cases, France, Russia, and China, she referred back, or she traced back, or like she made a reference to different time periods where the variables or her independent variables were not there. So that's why it didn't lead to any successful social revolutions in these countries. So this is called within case comparison. So she made some sort of process tracement by like when this kind of international vulnerability or military vulnerability did not exist, and this kind of revolutionary crisis didn't emerge, so that it didn't lead to the same outcome in different time periods, and these variables, they were not there, or the same conditions were not there in other historical contexts as well. So how to come up with a research design in order to control for, to offer you some sort of suitable controls and to increase, you know, the validity and the reliability of your outcome. So here the main purpose is to reach like generalization, but with some sort of limitation and drawbacks as well. So it's kind of bounded generalization, as Skocpol mentioned. So if you see here like the three logics, okay? So the first one is the parallel comparative history, or the demonstration of cases, and this macro historical comparative history, or the macro historical analysis, and this like contrast oriented comparative history. So again, what's the main purpose of the parallel demonstration of the theory? If you have your own research design and you need to for a specific purpose, if your main target or your main purpose is departing from general idea or generalization, and you need to apply to specific cases to show plausibility or more clarification about or more refinement of the theory. So what's the main target here, or the main purpose here?
I'll take this theory and make it on, or examine it on different cases to make, to assure for the reader the validity of my theory,
or to to offer some sort of explanation as well. Okay, like you need like to cover like a wide range of cases. If you see here the theory, and like you opted for some sort of similar cases in order to demonstrate, you know, the validity or the usefulness of or how fruitful, you know, this theoretical claim is. So you apply this to quite similar cases in order to convince the reader that there is kind of validity of this theoretical and general claim. So you're concerned with explanation. Macro historical analysis as well, they are interested in explanation, offering, you know, theoretical explanation, but along with offering some generalization, or offering like some other like general causal claims as well. So that's why you see here C equals C unequals C. So you have like not only similar cases, but you have to integrate or to plug into the analysis some sort of different cases to offer like negative check on your generalization or on your general claim. So you might here, you combine, you know, this parallel demonstration of the theory and macro historical analysis, so you can combine like both of them. Like, okay, so let me ask you this question. So what's this, what kind of logic, you know, you apply here when you have like a general theory or general like theoretical claim, and you apply this to specific cases?
To examine the validity of this.
No. Do you remember like inductive and deductive logics? So if you have like a general theory or general
deductive logic.
Yeah. Inductive, if you have like so you can deploy, like you can have like this, you can depart from this deductive model as for example like state and systemic political transformation. Okay, so you have like this generalization or general claim about cross-class alliances and different political transformations or different trajectories of political transformation. And then you have like, you can combine this with the macro historical analysis, because the main purpose here is you can complement your analysis by refining, you know, the theory and to coming up with different variable or different, you know, different variable in order to come up with different generalization. So you find, you refine, the existing theories by applying these theoretical claims or general explanations to different outcomes, by offering some sort of negative checks and some sort of suitable controls in order to reach a generalization. So it helped out, like the parallel demonstration or the existing theories would help you with your effort, or to refine or to spell out or to clarify and to come up with generalization and bounded generalization eventually. So they are not kind of mutually exclusive, so you can like combine some sort of logics in order to read, in order actually to meet your to fulfill your purpose, or to meet your research expectations. But if I ask you, can you combine between the macro historical analysis and the contrast oriented comparative history?
No.
Why?
because في الكونتراست انا بطلع يعني بهايلايت feature of the case مش موجودة في الكيس التانية، فهي
Yeah.
ما اقدرش ان انا اكومباين الكونتراست دي بالماكرو اناليسيز ليفل دي، لان التانية دي بتبقى شبه زي ما حضرتك قلتي الباراليل administrative of theory، فدي ما تبقاش قريبة منها.
Yeah, by definition they have like contradictory purposes. Okay, so you need here with the macro historical analysis, so you actually brought in Prussia, England, and Japan, but in order to offer like a negative check on your theory by highlighting the absence of the key independent variables that in these cases they didn't exist, so they didn't like satisfy or meet the necessary and sufficient conditions that would lead to the particular outcome. But here you are interested per se in these kind of unique feature in particular case, so you're not interested in generalization. But in order to generalize, by definition, so you need to segregate these kind of differences, or to put these kind of differences in a methodological frame in order to justify your generalizable outcome. So you see the point here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the main she mentioned something about Moore. He tried to do both, and this added some sort of ambiguity to his account, because after explaining, he had like these kind of 8 countries, democratic capitalist or representative parliamentary institutions in the US, France, and the UK, and then China and Russia, the communist, and Japan and Germany as fascist. But he actually added India, that it didn't actually conform to the general routes he offered. So he tried to offer some sort of negative check in order to have this macro historical analysis, but it complicated more the analysis. So instead of showing what kind of variables India actually, or the key variables India didn't have in order to account for like or actually had in order to account for the democratic outcome, he actually added India and said, you know what, because of this colonial legacy, she actually, the India actually, or Indian political elites inherited, these kind of democratic institutions. So the Congress Party, after reaching their independence, or they having like Indian independence, they actually maintained or kept the same democratic institutions. So this kind of cross-class alliances and bourgeois revolution is not applicable to this context. So he tried to make like this sort of contrast between different contexts, but for like having like this generalizable outcome about the establishment of democratic institutions. So that's why it added some sort of ambiguity, but it's not like they have some sort of contradicting purposes. So that's why it's very difficult to combine them both. So the point here, in order to have like a negative check on your or to add some sort of negative check to your generalizable outcome, so you need to highlight the absence of the the necessary and the sufficient conditions that would account for your outcome. And both, what kind of purpose they share together, those that they would demonstrate, the plausibility of the theory or the validity or fruitfulness of the particular theoretical claim, and those who needed, to highlight some peculiar or unique feature about cases. So what kind of purpose or theoretical and methodological aspect they may share. So it's here. So they have like the same like themes, conceptual theme, theoretical general idea, and they apply this to cases. But the difference is similar cases here, and here they are like different cases. So you see like theory, theme, and the arrows, C equals or C unequals. Guys, you see here? So you see how different these two logics are? Guys, if you don't get it, I can repeat, but just like give me some
دكتور
sort of feedback.
دكتور
You
هو
mean-
انا فاهمه
Yeah?
هو انا فاهمه ان الكونتراست مش زي الماكرو ليفل because من هنا بنهايلايت الفيتشر اوف ذا كيس، وهناك بنجنرالايز او بن examine the validity of the theory الجنرال theory. بس انا مش
Yeah.
فاهمه المثال اللي حضرتك قلتيه عشان ان احنا ما ينفعش نكومباين between them. انا بس مش فاهمه المثال.
Okay. So I mean, you can have like different purposes in while designing your research. Okay, designing like this comparative historical analysis. So it depends on if you are interested. Do you remember like why we compare? Like, do you remember this lecture, week 2?
Yes, explanation, understanding.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not necessary. So not all the time you need to reach out, this kind of low-like generalization. Okay. So if this is the main purpose, if you need to generalize, so you have to come up with particular research design with these kind of controls and these kind of negative checks. Okay. And parallel demonstration of the theory or the existing theoretical framework would help you by highlighting, some contrasting, hypotheses and some sort of refinement that would direct you to a specific direction or to guide you through the process of the research. But by definition, what I tried to mention here, if you didn't get like Moore's point on India, just forget about it. But
ايوه
the
هي
thing,
الحته دي.
yeah.
Okay.
But just in case if you do, yeah.
More try to combine between macro analytic theory, يعني
Yeah.
theoretical analysis and through generalization, but he did this in a wrong way. إن هو عمل contrast oriented comparative، فهو mentioned some features فده خلى إن يبقى فيه يعني I'm missing parts وambitious في ال
Yeah, that's the thing, because if you have to add, and this will be like you will get more clarification when you end your research methodology course. So I don't want to go deep into this, but the thing is, in order to have like, some sort of negative cases, it has like different purpose. You need to check on the conditions under which the outcome, will, or the political outcome you are interested in investigating would come about or would actually come out. So the contrast, it's the contrast between two contexts, it's a totally different purpose. You need, instead of you actually are you have some sort of doubts about, you know, this kind of general claims and generalization. But the macro historical analysis, you are interested in generalization. But both of them, like the what they share, like the parallel demonstration and the contrast-oriented historical analysis, they depart from some sort of general ideas, some sort of general themes, some sort of broad or ideal type with the contrast-oriented cases. So they have these kind of theories and they apply this to different cases or different contexts. But here with the parallel demonstration, with you have like the same outcome, like similar cases, they all like have the same revolutionary outcome, the social revolutionary transformation, and with the contrast they had like totally different outcomes. So remember, like comparing between Cuba and Guatemala or El Salvador. Okay, so you are interested as a whole in this kind of guerrilla armies or guerrilla groups, and you need to pinpoint to highlight what kind of unique feature Cuba had in order to have, you know, this revolutionary outcome. And despite, you know, and you need to relegate, you know, what to cast it out about the generalization that existed in the literature in order to highlight the unique feature about, for example, like the leadership personal qualities or characteristics. So you need to highlight, you know, one unique feature in this context that it didn't exist in the other context, and it's not generalizable by definition. But with the parallel demonstration, so you need like to highlight, to compare or to show, like, you know, how the military capabilities or the military strength and the mass loyalty or the shift of the mass loyalty, they are like crucial and necessary and sufficient conditions that would actually account for the revolutionary outcome or the successful revolutions in Cuba and Nicaragua. Okay?
Okay, Doctor.
Okay. So there are some sort of advantages and disadvantages with, as usual, and some sort of flaws or drawbacks in different methodological tools or different in these kind of logics or comparative logics, historical comparative logics. So with the parallel demonstration of the theory, it might help you clarify and refine the existing theory, and you show like how they are plausible on the ground, so that you can spill out, you know, how you unravel the mechanisms by which the cohesiveness of the military leadership and develop or reorganizing, you know, the guerrilla armies into conventional and gaining, you know, the main characteristics of conventional armies or conventional military helped, you know, the guerrilla movements in order to appeal to wide masses and to attract more or to recruit more peasants in order to sustain their revolutionary or insurrectional actions. So you show like the applicability on the ground. And with the contrast of context, so you show how you are skeptical or skepticism about valid explanatory generalization, but you are it's a point of a strength and weakness as well, by claiming or being self-conscious that you cannot generalize, and this kind of theoretical claims are not generalizable, and it's limited to a specific context or particular or peculiar features. So you might like get dragged into this what's called descriptive holism. So again, back to the same example. So if you are interested in presenting what's unique about El Salvador, that the country had like civil war instead of, or failed guerrilla movement, what was like unique about, what was the unique feature? It was like this kind of ideological rivalry between different factions inside the military, the guerrilla armies or the military groups. So here you offer like, you can give the reader like detailed historical account about how these guerrilla movements emerged, how actually they gained some sort of support from the Catholic Church in El Salvador, how they actually appealed to peasants or like subordinate classes and to be recruited into their armies. How the peasants actually served as a strong ally or offered strong support to them. This kind of, you offered some sort of descriptive like analysis or descriptive account. You didn't give me some sort of in-depth analysis in order to tell me how X causes Y. And as she mentioned, in order to frame your cases, you need some sort of theoretical account in order to offer me some sort of analytical framework of your cases. So you implicitly, you integrate, you interject some sort of theoretical claims into your account. So while departing from denying this sort of usefulness of generalization or theoretical generalization, so you fell into the same trap of having some sort of theoretical analytical framework in order to frame your comparison. So by offering me this descriptive account of a guerrilla movement in El Salvador, you implicitly refer to the strength of the military, which is like one in a way or another, it's well-established theoretical account in the literature. So you see the point? Okay, guys, tell me, you understand or you didn't?
No.
Okay.
الweakness point بس.
الweakness point, okay.
Yes. شكرا.
هو a part of the contrast of context. يعني the weakness point, I didn't get it so يعني well. يعني you mean that he didn't mention the causal relation, or he didn't go in depth for explaining how.
But you implicitly made this in order to frame your comparison anyway.
يعني هو بيذكر حاجات أنا مش هحتاجها، يعني detail أنا مش هحتاجها.
No. Okay, I'm thinking about different example.
Okay.
So if I compare between your first like reaction paper 1 and reaction paper 2, okay? So I need to make, sorry?
تمام مع حضرتك.
Yeah, I need to make, this contrast between these two contexts, okay? The parsimonious analysis and some sort of fluid or complex analysis, okay, or theoretical analysis. So I have like, hypothetically or supposedly, there is kind of like a theoretical or some sort of pedagogical, technique saying, or theory saying that, what, it's very axiomatic. It's like simple analysis or parsimonious analysis. It's much more easier to get digested than any sort of sophisticated or complex analysis. Okay, so I just need to write my feedback or my research on your second reaction paper. Okay, by comparing, or contrasting your second reaction paper and your first reaction paper. So I need to say, what, when it comes to the assumption, students actually highlighted, clearly the main assumptions of rational choice, and they didn't highlight, clearly the main assumption of rational choice. When it comes to the application, so here, the application of the rational choice, they actually resorted to, or they did the readings thoroughly in order to implement this to collective action problem theory, while here they didn't actually apply this to James Scott. So I actually described what you did in both papers, right? Did I mention something about X causes Y?
No, you just showed the contrasts or the opposites of these things.
But while framing my report, while writing my report, So there is kind of implicit theoretical or analytical framework here. It's about, you know, this kind of parsimonious theories or parsimonious analysis vis-a-vis or like versus this complicated or sophisticated cultural analysis. So while escaping or trying to argue against, you know, this generalization, so I somehow integrate some theoretical claims into my account. Okay. So the point here is not like integrating theories because you depart from like some general themes or some sort of like ideal type or benchmark to compare against. But the point here is about, you know, generalization. Okay.
Okay, Doctor, هو Yara Tariq, the one who was answering right now, she just يعني she got out because of internet problems and she wants
Okay.
to be admitted.
Yeah. Okay. So with the macro historical analysis, with the macro causal analysis, you are interested in validation or invalidation of theoretical framework. Okay. So when it comes to your controlled comparison, so you need to have like enough cases in order to have this sort of generalization. So what's the problem here? You need to anyway to break down, you know, this theoretical or historical sequences in order to examine what kind of variable would offer you the sufficient and the necessary condition in order to account for a particular outcome. But the thing is, history it's not necessarily to find some historical cases that would satisfy or serve the purpose of this controlled comparison. So if you need to cover, you know, this kind of state-society relations in from comparative perspective, like in Latin America and the Middle East, okay? So you cannot guarantee that there are enough historical cases in Latin America, like emerged from like, you know, this kind of historical experience and these kind of historical patterns that would help you rigorously design your research to control for different variables. So you are in a way or another limited to the existing historical patterns or existing historical like existing examples or like real world examples that might not necessarily give you the controlled comparison you need to in order to come up with this reliable or valid generalization. So but still, like, you can do that, but you have to be aware of the methodological caveats that you might fall into the trap of like this omitted variable bias. So you might, like, because you don't have like enough cases, so you might not pay attention to particular variable in order to control for and to reach, you know, this generalizable outcome. And again, with this kind of limitation, you have like this kind of inductive logic, so you cannot like 100% still probabilistic, and you might fall into these methodological caveats of omitting some variables or relegating, you know, some important details or important conditions that would account for the outcome or the political outcome you need to investigate. But again, there are kind of complementary like a relationship between the three logics, and they are not, as I mentioned, like some methodological limitation or some methodological caveat would direct you or would guide you through different studies or different research inquiry. For example, the limitation of this kind of the doubt or the skepticism about overly generalizable outcome or overly general theory, they might direct the macro historical analysis, or as a researcher you need to conduct, you know, this macro historical analysis by giving you some sort of new hypothesis to be tested, like the leadership personalities or the characteristics of the leadership, the importance of the leadership in like having like successful social revolution. So this kind of contrast studies directed you towards or giving you some sort of new hypothesis to be tested. And with this generalization, you conducted this macro historical analysis, and this you tested your hypotheses, and you developed these hypotheses into general theory. And this people that would be interested in parallel demonstration would take your theoretical framework to apply to different contexts or different theories. So it's kind of any sort of limitation would suggest some sort of possibility for future research inquiry. Okay, so you can combine some sort of different logics in your comparative historical analysis, and they are not mutually exclusive, except for the contrast and macro historical. They have like totally contradictory purposes as well, so that's why it's very difficult to deploy. Some sort of limitation, like rejecting, generalization at all, would like motivate researchers to conduct some studies that would detect or highlight some untestable hypotheses or untestable relationship, and you or other scholars or other researchers might be interested in taking these hypotheses to be and test them in order to come up with this general theory, and make this available to other scholars to apply to different. You applied this to like Western Europe, you applied this to the Middle East, or you applied this in Latin America. So you need to take the theories in order to show their plausibility and their fit in other contexts, like the Middle East or East Asia, for example. Okay.
Okay, doctor, can you tell us this reaction paper, how the form of it? We'll start by defining structure theory, then talking about Marx and Moore and Scofield, then what?
Try to this is like you have like Skocpol article on comparative historical analysis and macro social inquiry, and she highlighted some sort of critique, but it will depend on your skills to frame this kind of critique. So this is the way I framed it, this kind of complementary, how they might complement each other, how what kind of advantages and disadvantages of these, and how they might suggest some sort of potential or future research inquiries. They might offer some sort of future research studies for scholars. So you have to talk about Marx anyway. It's not like an application. This is like the foundation of any structural analysis, or like it's a path-breaking study in it actually exported from political sociology to structural analysis in political science or in comparative politics. So you can define, or the main assumption about structural explanation in comparative politics, and what's the main pillars of structural school in comparative politics, and then Karl Marx, how actually he offered this foundation, and actually inspired some other scholars to deploy the same structural analysis to interpret. So you have to pick and choose between like this more systemic political transformation or systemic political change, or social revolution. Okay, so you have to select or to choose between Moore and Skocpol. And then like some remarks or some sort of drawbacks or merits and demerits of comparative historical analysis as one form. It's like a structural analysis is predominantly historical in comparative politics. So that's why you need to highlight, what kind of the positive aspects and the negative aspects, methodologically speaking, by deploying this comparative historical analysis in comparative politics.
دكتور دكتور حضرتك قلتي ان احنا هنتكلم عن الميد تيرم النهارده، بس هو دلوقتي احنا عندنا سيكشن زمانه بدأ، فمش عارفه حضرتك هتقولي لنا ولا نقفل ونروح السيكشن ولا
No. Next week we will have like 2 lectures next week, okay? But the week after we're gonna have like 1 week off. Okay. This is like the normal thing, as if we had like face-to-face classes. Okay. Yeah, and I thought about, you know, this different office hours, and as far as I know, you should have your all sections on Saturdays, right? Right or wrong?
لا يا دكتور section political thought النهارده وال two other sections يوم الخميس.
We don't have
Yeah.
section Saturdays off يعني. The only
Yeah, I
day we
think-
take it off, okay? We have a section of political science today, political thought قصدي today, and tomorrow, Thursday, we have another 2 sections, but Saturday is the only day we take it as a holiday and from the college.
Yeah, because I think you should have like one day off, and like normally speaking, like you have your all sections on Thursdays or Saturdays. I'm not sure, but you have like, you know, all your sections on one day. So I'm not sure if I can change this. I can like speak to the one who coordinated, you know, these sections, because I think like the TA decided on the time before after actually we started the semester, right? She was the one who decided, or it was
Yes,
already
we used to take it in the college, but then he turned it to be online. So he decided to choose this time. But after you have already told us that the office hours is on Wednesday after the lecture.
Yeah.
You got my point? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So like meanwhile, you can like email me your queries or your questions, and if you need like if we need to have like in-depth discussion or some detailed discussion, so you can just like take a permission from the TA that you can have like, you know, a few minutes, you know, to ask me the questions, and then you can go back to your section.
Okay, doctor, can I leave now?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. See
Okay,
you
thank
next week. Yeah.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.